Before we get started, just a quick background about our company. Zenturo was incorporated in 2006 here in Malta, and our offices are located in Santa Venera, which is about 10 minutes from the capital of Valletta. Our staff speaks several languages, including English, of course, German, Italian, Spanish, Russian, and Chinese. But if you need another language, we can always find an interpreter. If you have any questions after the webinar, feel free to contact us by email, or you can call one of our office number or send us a text on WhatsApp, whatever you prefer. We work with several licensed immigration attorneys, and today the webinar will be held by Dr. Russell Attar-Baldacchino.
Good morning and good afternoon to everyone who has joined us. As Anna has mentioned, my name is Dr. Attar-Baldacchino. I am a licensed agent with Community Malta Agency, and this is the government agency that regulates the citizenship by investment and also the residency by investment program through another entity called the Residency Malta Agency. I've been in the Malta's investment migration industry since the Citizenship by Investment Programme was first introduced in 2014. And over the last year or so, I've been working very closely with Zenturo in order to assist clients with their relocation to Malta. So we hope that you find this webinar to be, one, obviously informative and helpful to make your decision on the way forward for yourselves and possibly also your family. Before I start, I do need to move on to a brief disclaimer slide, which will be coming up now. Effectively, what we need to say is that this presentation is being provided purely for informative purposes. And therefore, it's important that you do not take this as any professional advice. So we will touch on to briefly some legal, financial, and tax topics. However, do feel free to reach out to us after the webinar, either on our contact numbers or email, and we can guide you in further detail. Okay, so another point to mention is that I understand that you are not able to communicate directly at the moment through your microphones or chat. However, we have received, when you subscribed for the webinar, a set of questions from a number of you, and I will be tackling these questions or most of these questions throughout the presentation, and also a dedicated section towards the end of the presentation. So we'll move on to the next slide now, where basically we will cover the agenda for the webinar. I don't know whether some of you or maybe any of you have had the opportunity to visit Malta yet. So if you have, I'm sure that you understand that Malta is a beautiful country, very rich in terms of culture, and offers a number of benefits. So we'll tackle that shortly. We'll then move on to a bit of an explanation of the difference in rights between permanent residency, or the rights you'd get as a Maltese resident, versus the rights you would acquire as a Maltese citizen. And then we delve into further detail about the two main programs, the Malta Permanent Residence Programme, which obviously, as the name indicates, grants residence rights in Malta on a permanent basis, obviously subject to certain conditions. After that, we will then look at the Malta Citizenship by Investment Programme, which is a recently introduced, a more recently introduced piece of legislation compared to a previous programme that had been in place. And we will end the webinar with the Q&A and some concluding remarks. So I think on that note, we can move on to the next slide, and we'll discuss a bit about Malta. So first and foremost, Malta is a very small jurisdiction compared to our European and North African neighbors. We are centrally located between North Africa and Europe, just below Sicily. So you can get to North Africa and the rest of Europe with most major airlines. And we do have flights on a daily basis. Even during the pandemic, Malta still continued to have excellent air routes in terms of travel logistics. Our population is also reflective of our size. So the city you might be watching this from could have a larger population than our country, as Malta has a population of around 500,000 people, or around 500,000. The positive point about Malta in terms of getting around is that we have two official languages. We do have our own language, Maltese. However, English is also listed as an official language in our constitution. So all the government departments or the education institutions and most people, if not all people you meet on the street, will have at least an average or a good knowledge of the English language. Now, since you probably ended up here as you are interested in some sort of investment migration opportunity, I'm sure that the economy of Malta is of great importance to your decision. And on this point, what I can say is that Malta has had a very resilient and stable economy, notwithstanding certain global events such as the 2008 economic crisis. We are currently in the midst of a global pandemic, which is still ongoing and has been for a couple of years now. However, that being said, the property market in Malta is doing very well. So there are record numbers of transactions taking place. The prices of property do continue to see a positive growth. And overall, if you look at other aspects such as unemployment, very, very low figures of unemployment. In fact, employers struggle to find employees as opposed to employees struggling to find a job. So overall, the economy is definitely something that has proven that it can be relied on. Now, another aspect that's important about Malta, and obviously every individual has to deal with their taxation. So tax in Malta is quite attractive when individuals are not fiscal residents in Malta. So there is an attractive fiscal regime, which one could also look into. Because of the restraints in terms of time, we won't go into too much detail about taxation in this session. However, we do intend to have follow-up sessions to this one, and taxation is likely to be one of the main topics. The last point is, how easy will it be to travel without a visa if you've become a resident or a citizen of Malta? So Malta is a European jurisdiction. We are members of the Eurozone and the Schengen and also the Commonwealth. So in terms of travel and mobility, whether you become a resident or eventually opt to be a citizen, you are going to have increased mobility if, unfortunately, the citizenship that you hold or the passport that you hold does not grant you a wide range of visa-free travel options. So that's a very brief overview about Malta. And I think the next slide that we'll be looking at is going to provide a bit more insight when comparing the rights that one would acquire, whether one opts for a residency program or a citizenship program. So these are questions that crop up very frequently when we are discussing the options with our clients. And rights are obviously important because at the end of the day, that is what you are investing to acquire. So first of all, the right to live or retire in Malta or the EU. Now, we will go into the two programs separately. However, both of the programs are definitely going to grant you the right to live in Malta and retire in Malta and effectively be in Malta without any restriction. With regards to being in the EU or the Schengen, the residency program will allow for an element of visa-free travel within the Schengen. And then the citizenship program will grant a full set of rights across the EU. So, of course, there is a significant discrepancy between those two programs in terms of living or moving around the EU or the Schengen. Another question that our clients ask are with regards to the rights to study, to work, or to set up a business or a company in Malta. So in terms of education, definitely there's no requirement of any added permits or anything of that sort. So whether if you are a resident of Malta or a citizen of Malta, definitely you can study in Malta, your children can study in Malta. In terms of work, citizens are allowed to work without a permit. So if you are a citizen of Malta, you can simply apply for any employment position and begin working without any other formalities with the government. In terms of residency, however, the Malta Permanent Residence Programme will grant you the right to reside in Malta, but not automatically the right to work. However, this is a simple procedure whereby we would need to submit a work permit application. However, work permit applications are not complex to acquire in the case of applicants already having the right to be in Malta. So if you do want to move to Malta and you do want to work in Malta, both the Permanent Residence Programme and the Citizenship by Investment Programme would allow you to do that. When it comes to formation of a company, this is maybe surprising to some people. However, there are no restrictions on the basis of nationality to set up. So you don't have to be a citizen or a resident of Malta in order to set up a company in Malta. However, you have to keep in mind that setting up a company in Malta does not automatically grant you the right to reside in Malta. So you might have to have two elements: the immigration perspective, where you have to achieve the right to be in Malta, and then you'd couple that with the setting up of the company in order to operate that company from Malta. And again, on this point, there are elements of taxation which would be applicable. So there is the corporate taxation system in Malta for non-fiscal resident shareholders is an attractive regime that can also be used even if you become a citizen or a resident of Malta, because we have to highlight that the Permanent Residence Programme or the Citizenship by Investment Programme do not automatically grant any tax implications. Okay. Now, when a family moves to Malta or individuals start asking about, can I get free education in Malta? Can I get free healthcare in Malta? The answer depends on a crucial factor. So automatically, by becoming a resident or a citizen, you do not automatically get the right to make use of free social services. However, if an individual begins contributing to our social security system, in that case, then after the contributions are made, the family or the dependent family members will be eligible for the social services system. So if you do contribute to the social security system, then you will become eligible to benefit from those services. So very briefly, I mean, if we can conclude on this slide here, both the programs are going to allow you to be present in Malta. Both of the programs are going to allow you an element of increased travel and potential to do business in Malta and also in Europe. And if individuals wish, they also can partake in our social security system by contributing and then benefiting from that system. So the first program to look at is the Malta Permanent Residence Programme. So this actually follows a previous program that had been in place previously. It was amended in certain aspects, and in my opinion, the program has been improved. The benefits of the program are going to be the right to stay, reside, and settle in Malta indefinitely. So once you achieve the certificate of residency at the end of the process of this program, so long as you satisfy the initial 5-year compliance requirements, after that, your certificate of residence will remain in effect forever. And this will cover your family members, and in cases where possibly the unfortunate instance where the main applicant for some reason might pass, it is also possible for that certificate to be passed on to the surviving family members. So in order to be eligible for the Malta Permanent Residency Programme, there are some specific conditions which are mainly financial. Another point is that individuals who apply for the Malta Permanent Residence Programme naturally should be third country nationals, so it is not open for EU citizens, as EU citizens already enjoy the right to reside in Malta. So it's open for third country nationals or non-EU nationals. To be eligible, such individuals must have a minimum capital or assets of at least 500,000 euro, and out of this minimum capital, 150,000 euro or equivalent must be held in easily liquidated financial assets or liquidatable financial assets. So this means that if an applicant owns 2 properties, which in total are a value of 600,000, and the applicant has 200,000 euro in stock options and savings accounts, then they will be meeting the eligibility requirements, as their total wealth would be around 800,000 euro with over 200,000 or so in financial assets. When it comes to the costs, and this is definitely something of interest for yourselves, I'm sure, giving a brief estimate. So if we will, as I mentioned about the taxation earlier, the intention is to have detailed sessions about the Permanent Residence Programme and subsequently also the Citizenship Programme as well. So we'll give a breakdown in future sessions. And if you do wish to have a quote, please reach out to us with your family structure and we will be able to quote you accordingly. So in terms of the costs, very roughly, a family of 4 with the minimum rent for 5 years and all the government costs and charitable donations will amount to under around 200,000 euro or even less. So it could be as low as 180 or 190,000 euro. And that is including more or less everything. So if you had to compare this to other programs available, and the fact that this is a certificate that is granted for life on a permanent basis, this is quite an attractive program in terms of the costs. Now, when we are looking at the documentation, and this applies both to the residency program and the citizenship program, it's important to note that applicants, apart from meeting the financial eligibility requirements of the minimum capital and the minimum financial assets, it's important to note that the main applicant is also required to disclose their total net worth and also explain how this wealth has been accumulated and further support this with documentary evidence. So one of the major reasons that would determine whether an application is approved is how well the applicant is able to prove with documentation and explanations how they have accumulated their wealth and how they intend to pay for the program costs. From experience, some applicants tend to get the idea that it's enough to prove the minimum requirements and enough to prove where the government costs will be paid from. However, that is not the case, and it is full disclosure, and non-disclosure could in fact result in the application being rejected. So we do recommend that clients are completely transparent and we guide at every step of the way to make sure that we compile the best application possible for the applicants. In terms of processing times for the Malta Permanent Residence Programme, if we take into consideration the onboarding process, potentially the clients would wish to visit Malta for an exploratory visit, and then the time to compile the documentation, translations, certifications, the submission of the application to the government, the final decision from the government, and eventually collecting the certificate of residence, to give some room for the time frame, I would say that this could be done comfortably in around 12 months. In reality, it could be done faster than that. So the only time constraints that we have are the 120-day period during which the agency should give us a decision. So if we extend that to 150 days, and then we need to take into consideration the time to prepare the application and the time to satisfy the requirements at the end of the program. So overall, anything between 8, 9 to 12 months is a realistic time frame that you can rely on, so long as all the information and documents needed are provided in a timely manner. And also, after the application is submitted, the agency could come back and is likely to come back with follow-up questions. So any time spent to answer those questions could delay the process if not done efficiently. So again, it's important that the drive and the efficiency does not only depend on ourselves as the providers to compile the application, but of course, we do rely on our clients to cooperate with us to achieve faster timeframes. So that very briefly covers the Malta Permanent Residence Programme, which we call the MPRP. If by any chance you do happen to come across other information about a similar program for Malta, primarily the Malta Residence and Visa Programme, do note that this is outdated information that might be online, and that relates to a previous program that came before this program, which has now been terminated and is no longer available. So the only residence by investment program from Malta at the moment is the MPRP. There are, of course, other ways to become a resident. However, this is the long-term solution for families that are happy to make the required investments. So moving on to the next program. So just as I ended on my last point, my last slide, by stating that the MPRP is the only residency by investment program that is a long-term solution. This same applies to the Malta Citizenship for Exceptional Services regulations. This program was also introduced after a previous citizenship by investment program was terminated, and that was referred to as the Individual Investor Program, or the IIP. The IIP had reached its quota of applicants. It was phased out, and these new regulations came into place, which offer a new citizenship by investment program. So the benefits that one would achieve through this program come through at various stages. So the benefit over here is that once individuals start the process to apply to become a citizenship of Malta, there is a crucial factor that there must be a period of residency that applies before we can submit the actual citizenship application. And this period of residency is opted for by the client. It is either a 12-month period or a 36-month period of residency. The main difference, apart from the time frame, of course, is that if applicants choose the 3-year residency option, the direct investment payable to the government of Malta is reduced by €150,000. So there is some significant savings in terms of the direct investment if you are not in a rush to be naturalized as a citizen, and if you are happy to be a resident for 3 years first instead of 1 year. Now, so that is the benefit I want to highlight. The first step of the process for the Citizenship by Investment Programme is that applicants and all adult family members in the application, and you can also include the children, are required, the adults, to obtain the Malta residence permit. And then during this period of residency, they are obliged to spend an amount of time in Malta as residents of Malta. So straight away, you're going to get a Malta residence permit. This permit will give you the right to reside in Malta, the right to travel visa-free throughout the Schengen. However, you don't have the right to reside in other Schengen states. Your time in the rest of the Schengen is limited to the 90 out of every 180-day rule. However, the time you spend in Malta does not contribute to that time window. So you are free to spend, and we do recommend that you do spend as much time as possible in Malta during this period of residency. Now, difference to the residency program we mentioned previously, there are technically no financial eligibility requirements for this program, apart from the fact that the applicant must obviously be able to afford the payments and investments that are required. If we move on to the question of the investments and the costs, for a typical family unit, which consists of a main applicant, a spouse, and 2 children, if we had to count the non-refundable direct investment to the government, if we had to count the rental property for the minimum 5 years, and basically all the fees that one would expect to have to contribute, this would amount to roughly 1.1 million euro for a family of 4. This does exclude professional fees, since the professional fees may vary on a number of different factors. However, as a ballpark figure, you're looking at around roughly 1 to 1.1 million euro if it's a main applicant or if it's a larger family structure. If the applicant wishes to purchase a property instead of rent a property for the required periods, in that case, there is a minimum property value of 700,000 in terms of the property value to be acquired. So applicants have 2 options. They will either purchase a property or rent the property. So in that case, it depends on the available capital of the applicant and whether the applicant is interested to delve into the Maltese property market or not at the end of the day. However, as I said, looking historically at the property price index for Malta, the trend is and has normally always been a positive increase, save for some minor instances in the past. So if we had to compare briefly the 2 programs, of course, back to the Malta Permanent Residence Programme, you're looking at a cost of around 200,000, whereas the Citizenship Programme, we're looking at a cost of around 1 million plus, depending on the family structure. As to the documentation, very, very similar. So the difference, I would say, is that for the Citizenship by Investment Programme, we do have to provide documentation for all assets that are held by the main applicant. Nothing changes about the historical explanations of how the wealth was acquired, and obviously proving the source of funds that will be paid to the government. So in terms of the application, the distinction between the 2 programs is not very great. So the requirements of the proving the source of wealth, the wealth, and how that was generated, those will always be applicable for whichever program. In terms of processing times, or the time frame for the actual process, over here, we're looking at roughly a minimum of 12 months, because it is only after 12 months of residency that we can then submit the citizenship application forms to request the citizenship to be granted. However, it is to be noted that during this 12 months of the residency period, we will submit what is referred to as a citizenship eligibility application. And based on the outcome of the citizenship eligibility application, the client will already know whether the government would be happy to grant the individual citizenship or not once the citizenship application is submitted after the 12 months. And that is why we refer to that stage as the citizenship eligibility application stage. So once the eligibility application is approved, the applicants have spent a period of residency of Malta during the 12 or 36-month period. After that period of residency and achieving, hopefully, the approval on the application, the submission of the citizenship application forms would be done. The approval in principle will be issued by the government, and it is only then that the clients are required to satisfy the mandatory obligations. So again, for either program, whether it's the residency program or the citizenship by investment program, applicants only need to satisfy the major requirements of contribution, non-refundable direct investment, qualifying property, only after there is that certainty that the application has been approved in principle. And this mitigates very much the risk of your investments not being returned. So at the end of the day, the processing times will vary. If opting for the 12-month residency period, realistically, the whole process should take anything between 14 to 15, 16 months, depending on the logistics at the end of the process. However, if opting for the 36-month residency option, obviously, then we're looking at a time frame of roughly 30, 37 or 38 months to actually have the naturalization and passports in hand. So that briefly goes over the citizenship by investment program. We refer to this as the CES program, and some providers also refer to it as the MEIN, Malta Exceptional Investor Naturalization. So if you do come across these terms online whilst doing your research, it's good to know that it's referring to the same type set of regulations. Now, it is to be noted, as this question does come up, that the citizenship by investment program that we've just gone through is limited or capped to a maximum of 400 successful applicants per year. This should not be a concern for applicants, because when we submit the residency application at the first stage of the process, you will indicate to the government agency whether you want the 12 or 36-month option. And based on that notification, if it seems that the cap is close to reaching its limit, then the government might inform, the government agency may inform us that then you would need to be moved on to the subsequent year for naturalization. However, from experience to date, we have not encountered this situation, as it seems to be that less than 400 successful applicants are being achieved on an annual basis. Okay, so that covers the citizenship program, and I think now we can move on to the next slide, where we're basically going to cover some of the questions that came through prior to the session. So I do appreciate that you are not able to interact directly at the moment. However, in order to try and also cover this interaction, we will be dealing with specific questions that came through from you guys who are watching. So one of the first questions we had basically was asking about the difference between acquiring citizenship and permanent residency, and whether there are two different options or different investment options. So I've covered most of that question, because yes, we do have a citizenship by investment program, a residence by investment program, and there is only one of each of these programs. So however, in terms of investment options, the main difference that one would see under the permanent residency program, individuals have the option to either rent a property, and if they rent a property under the permanent residence program, the minimum annual rent is that of €10,000 per year. Whereas if individuals opt to purchase a property under the Permanent Residence Programme, there's a minimum property value of €300,000 that needs to be satisfied. So that is the primary investment in the residency program which is available, and it is basically an option to invest in property. Just to clarify, both the programs are not a selection of either investing in property or paying a government contribution. It's important to note that both programs follow a similar structure, whereby you have a set of administrative fees, a contribution or a non-refundable direct investment to the government, a requirement to rent or buy a property in Malta, and that's where the property investment could come in. And then both options, both programs have a charitable donation requirement. But again, the amount over there is reflective of the program. Under the Permanent Residency Programme, it's merely a €2,000 charitable donation to any charity registered in Malta of your choice. Under the Citizenship by Investment Programme, that is slightly higher at a minimum donation of €10,000. Again, once the approval has been achieved. Obviously, we do urge individuals that, if possible, and capital is available, to help out the local communities and charities by, if possible, also donating larger amounts. And this in fact has been the case with clients. So in terms of the investment, that is really it. There is not much of a choice in terms of financial investments or an investment where you will get a financial return in forms of interest. It is mainly linked to property investment. And for the Citizenship by Investment Programme, the main investment is not refundable to the applicant. So in return for the investment into the Maltese economy, you will be actually naturalized as a citizen after you have completed your period of residency, as declared in your initial application. So another question that we got through is somebody was asking about the length of time to receive the passport, whether it's 3 months or 6 months. Quite honestly, I'm not sure of where the information came from here. However, as I mentioned, to become a citizen of Malta, you would have to satisfy the initial residency requirement of 12 or 36 months. And then after that, would submit the citizenship application forms. And it will take roughly a month or two to actually have the passport in hand. So maybe this question was asking about the final stage of the passport process. In terms of the family that can be included in either of the programs, as one of the questions was that they would like to apply for citizenship and obtain a passport for the main applicant and the family members. Both programs cater for full family structures. So you can have up to 4 living generations that can be included in either of the applications. So the main applicant, and you can move parents or grandparents of the main applicant and of the spouse. And then you also can include children who are already born, including children who are of a significant age. So under the residency program, there is no age limit on children to be included in the application, so long as the children are unmarried and principally dependent on the main applicant. In terms of the citizenship application, again, you can include children of quite an age, up to the age of 29. And that means, again, that if the child is 29, it's important, or younger, they can be included, but they have to also be unmarried and prove that they are to an extent dependent on the main applicant. And obviously we will guide you on how to satisfy those documentary requirements as part of our service. So another question that came through is regarding EU visa options for UK passport holders. So at this point in time, the UK if there was no application submitted before the end of the Brexit transition period, at this point in time, UK nationals or citizens would be considered as third country nationals. And therefore, as an EU visa option that's being asked here, the Malta Permanent Residency Programme will definitely satisfy the right for the individual or the UK citizen to reside in Malta and settle in Malta, retire in Malta, and also grant that access to the Schengen for every 90 out of 180 days. However, it's important to note that the Permanent Residence Programme does not mean that you can live in any Schengen state. It means you can live in Malta and you can spend limited amounts of time in the rest of the Schengen area. Another question is basically regarding, and I think this is important from a practical perspective, it's about the cost of living and language in Malta. The language we've touched on earlier, the Maltese and English are spoken throughout the country. Do bear in mind that Malta does have a very large expat community. In fact, most of the time, if you are out and about, you're probably going to be hearing in certain areas a number of other languages that are neither English or Maltese, as a lot of tourism is present in Malta and it's a main industry here. So it's also a hotspot for international culture, and it is likely that you will bump into people who speak your own language if your language is neither English or Maltese, but you always have the option to fall back on English in most situations. As to the cost of living or the quality of life, I would say that it's if individuals have a disposable income of at least 1,000 to 1,500 euro per month, excluding rent or accommodation costs, one could live a comfortable lifestyle over here. So depending obviously on the options that one chooses to use. So you will find a variety of let's say restaurants where you can have dinner where you can spend 20-25 euro per head. On the other hand, you're going to find Michelin guide or Michelin restaurants, and also maybe not Michelin, where you could be spending 150, 200, 250 plus per head. So the lifestyle and the costs very much depend on how much the individual is willing to spend. However, you can get by without much disposable income in Malta. So many people are here, in fact, on not only investment migration programs, but we have a lot of expats working in Malta. There's been a digital nomad visa program that was introduced. So Malta caters to a number of tiers of economic wealth. I think more or less that pretty much sums up the questions that we received that were relevant to the topics we wanted to discuss today. I may have not, a number of details are still left to be explored in future sessions. So do follow the Zenturo newsletter and information to keep up to date about when next sessions may take place. Furthermore, the easiest way to get the answers to your questions would be to reach out after this session, and you can schedule a free consultation call with the team so that we can tackle your questions or financial proposals for the programs directly. So I thank you for your time and your interest in Malta and the programs and Zenturo and obviously myself and the services we offer. I'll pass on to Anna now to conclude, and we do hope to see you soon in future webinars, or hopefully even better here in Malta. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Attar, and thank you for attending today's webinar. If you have any questions about what we have covered today, or if you just want to get some additional information, you can please visit our website at malta-citizenship.info. We also launched a brand new YouTube channel where you have several videos about the immigration programs of Malta. You just search for Zenturo Limited on YouTube and you will find us. And if you would like to book a consultation, please use the link on the screen, which is malta-citizenship.info/consultation. And of course, you can always reach us by email, sending us an email on service@zenturo.com. Thanks again and have a great day.